influence and sensibilities underneath them, the cult energy, the visceral splatter, the sincere tone. We're tracing that style across 3 decades and three of his classic films, right after the intro music. You're listening to Second Cut. This is the weekly podcast where we talk about topics in film theory, criticism, history, etc. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who does speaking training CDs in my car before the show.
I'm Sam, and I'm the one who probably shouldn't have played that occult recording to wake up the woods.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one who is not going to pay $5 to see the Dancing Freak.
Yeah, we actually went against making some kind of occult recording out of this episode instead of just doing an episode. I think that was a good call.
Yeah, although, to be honest, if you want to raise demons in your own home, just play this episode backwards. And hopefully that'll work.
Yes,
well,
that would be
it's
ideal.
So occult, it seems we've already killed off Sam.
Yeah, Sam has been gotten. Back later with a messed up the basement. It'll be a whole thing. Yeah, but we're talking about Sam Raimi movies because his film Send Help, at least here in the U.S., came out last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever day you say a movie releases.
Yeah.
I was
don't know when it comes out for us.
Go see it. Kieran, have you seen it?
Okay. It's not out for us yet. It comes out on Friday. So I will probably this weekend. Like I've got a lot of things to catch up on. Because I didn't go this weekend. I've got Strangers Chapter 3 to suffer through. Send Help. Got to suffer through Primate. Iron Lung, Shelter. So I'm gonna. Yeah. I've got a lot. So Send Help will be in there.
Nice. Let's see. I just realized I didn't change any of our graphics. Anyway, I was able to go see Send Help, and it is a really good movie. I, obviously like Spider-Man and saw those in theaters, but I think this is the first Raimi movie that I've seen in theaters and really enjoyed and had a good time watching.
By a Raimi movie, do you mean a Raimi horror movie?
Yeah, pretty much, I guess. I know you saw his Doctor Strange movie, which I did not see, though. He also tried to kind of bring that horror stuff into there, didn't he?
Tried, yeah. It didn't really... Like, you could watch this and not know it was a Sam Raimi movie other than a Bruce Campbell cameo and the Oldsmobile going around. I mean, there's a bit of sort of, like... I don't know, sort of... Not horror, but slightly kind of surrealist weirdness. If like you can go to a horror route from that way, but aside from that, it wasn't that much. Sam, if you're back, your thoughts on how much Sam Raimi horror went into Doctor Strange?
Not enough.
Yes.
The stuff that was there was really good. But, yeah, I wanted more of it. More zombie Strange, more ones doing J horror stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Sam, I guess you'll be seeing Send Help as soon as possible. Yeah, but I mean, you guys are much bigger.
Sam clicked off, and we thought about sending help for him, but he managed to get back on his own.
I've barricaded my window against the deadites. I think I'll be all right for a little while.
Yeah. Okay. I will say
he didn't have to use his skills for like Naked and Afraid.
Yeah, I will also say very quickly that I will be quoting from a smattering of things purely on Evil Dead because I can find absolutely no sources for Darkman, and I'm very upset that my university only had a physical copy of one of my lecturers, old lecturers, actual books on the Evil Dead. So I managed to get the first 10 pages of Google Books. But I'm sorry, Kate, I couldn't get anything. They haven't got an online copy. So if I see you again in Newcastle in May, then I'll apologise for that. But yeah, because she did her PhD thesis on sort of cult film and kind of censorship and stuff along those lines. So yeah, I'll be quoting from my old lecturer, so there's no bias there and at all. She is one of the leading scholars on Evil Dead.
Oh, that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, if you think about it, Sam Raimi he's done the classic kind of roots of like genre director, hasn't he? Really, starting off in very kind of slapdash, handmade, kind of low budget horror, and then getting more and more of a budget over the years and doing higher and higher profile projects until he's one of the most mainstream, well known kind of directors out there. I mean, him and someone like Peter Jackson pretty much had the exact same kind of career trajectory of like somewhere kind of time frame, really.
Even somebody like Del Toro.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, definitely.
And I mean, a lot of them, even James Wan as well, is kind of come up through that route. I just wanted to very quickly, literally the last page of the stuff I could access from Kate Egan's book has something which is very interesting on that topic. It's a little lengthy, but I want to read it because it's interesting as a starting point. So Sam Raimi and a group of his mates who included Bruce Campbell had kind of got like a film group together kind of thing, and they were making a few bits. They made a couple of shorts, and one of them was called It's Murder, and they made it, I think, for about $2,000, and they were screening it at the university for like $1.50 a screening sort of thing, trying to get some of the money back. And then she goes on to start going into Evil Dead, and I'll read verbatim as much as I can. A common misconception in many journalistic, academic, and fan writings on The Evil Dead is that Sam Raimi is a long-term horror fan. In fact, as pointed out by Warren, Raimi and company had primarily bonded over their love of slapstick comedy, crime, and mystery films from Hollywood's classic era, and Raimi had, as a youth, always avoided horror, finding it unpleasant and scary. The decision to move towards horror was therefore informed primarily by the group's growing focus on economic and commercial aspects of independent production. So it's literally going, this will make money, this is easy to make, and it's effective. And points out that during screenings of It's Murder, the group noted that the only moment that provoked a clear and effective reaction from the audience occurred during a suspense sequence when a criminal leapt out at a potential victim. As Campbell notes in his... the Chins book, I can't remember what's the title of it, Sam?
If Chins Could Kill.
That's the one. As Campbell notes, this consistent response pointed to the fact that a focus on scares and jumps might be the way to go when planning their first feature, serving as a potential guarantee of provoking a strong reaction from the audience. So it's literally a trial and error, and they kind of saw this and went, actually horror might be the best way to go, kind of, for getting reactions and therefore financially for us for the first route. I mean, they're both... Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, his long-time kind of thing. By the way, Jacob, is Bruce Campbell in Send Help as a cameo anywhere?
Yes, I don't think he's physically in it. There's a portrait of him.
Okay.
He plays the character's deceased father.
And is the Oldsmobile in there somewhere?
I didn't look for that.
Oh, disgraceful.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah,
I think he managed to get in all the films apart from the period pieces, though. Obviously, it was still an Army of Darkness because that's doing timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah, because it gets taken up in the big monster stuff and it's ripping up the ground, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes it therefore interesting. I mean, him and Campbell are massive Three Stooges fans, which is why a lot of the comedy stuff comes in. You know, they get asked like at fan conventions, "What's your favourite Three Stooges thing?" They can narrate it off by heart.
Yeah, and they replicate those kind of slapstick routines quite a bit, especially the poking in the eyes and get hit by objects, send them flying, things like that. Yeah. Another reason why they I mean, especially on Evil Dead, for budgetary reasons or for reasons of most of the cast and crew having a life, having to leave and do other things after 6 weeks. they still got very unconvincing stand-ins, to finish shots, for reverse shots of some scenes, and they end up calling that shemping after Three Stooges. One of the Three Stooges died suddenly midway through a film. That he used a series of unconvincing stunt doubles to finish the film, basically. So they grabbed whoever was available at the time, shoved them in a wig or a costume, put their back to the camera, and said, "Right, you're the chef today."
Yeah.
I mean, just stand there, give us an eye line.
I mean, Bruce Campbell actually has a cameo in Darkman because it's like his back that he essentially shemps in right at the end of Darkman. But again, I must have said the thing about Saw where they needed a shot of somebody from like police coming into the thing, so they used Lee Warnell from the waist down because he's meant to be chained up in a basement halfway across town. It's just like, oh, I can't see the face, anyone will do. Like the amount of stuff that went on for making the first Evil Dead is ridiculous. But we'll come on to that when we get there. Probably one thing I want to ask is, what do you think is kind of if Raimi has a trademark style, let's say, what would you say that is? What would you watch and go, yep, that's a Raimi movie?
Well, you think of the kind of the floating kind of point of view shots, don't you? It's like it's like the shot that it's like the Jaws shark POV, except it's flying. Or kind of just making impossible movements through objects and around objects and into the sky and under the earth. Which originally achieved in the most kind of lo-fi kind of way possible. Literally, a camera nailed to a board and being carried between two of them.
Yep, it's how it's meant to be done, right?
I think.
Yeah.
For me, I would go with, not counting the Spider-Man movies, the apparently only, craft inspired from 70s horror movie gore. If you had asked me before this, has Sam Raimi watched, Italian horror films that Kieran loves, I would have said yes. But both Kieran, your quote that you gave, and a video I saw where Bill Hader related a story of Sam Raimi screening Cannibal Holocaust, that it turns out he hadn't seen it and was disturbed by the film. It's very interesting to see that he's not into horror movies, because that sort of interesting splattery gore is definitely what I think of when I think of his movies.
I think he wasn't into horror initially. He obviously then saw enough as the years went on, and he was kind of operating in that window in order to be able to draw on stuff later on. So with Dark Money, draws on the Universal stuff and like Hunchback and Notre Dame and stuff like that. And then obviously, you say you'd obviously not watched a lot of Italian horror movies, but he literally picks a shot from Lucio Fulci's The Beyond and inserts it into his first Spider-Man movie. It's literally the exact same shot. It's just that one had in because they needed more shots of kind of prosthetic spiders running around, and there was a shot from there, so put it in. So he obviously knew it enough to be able to bring it in there. So I think it's just, as time's gone on, if you're operating in that sphere, let's say you're a classical music person but end up playing in a heavy metal band, like by 6-7 years on, you're going to know quite a lot of heavy metal songs. It's just or if you're a jazz, you're playing a jazz band, and you're a hip hop artist. Like by the time you've played enough, you're going to know quite a few jazz tracks. I think it's just exposure to that thing that you'll pick the stuff up.
And I do think of him like bringing like discordant tones like into his films as well. No matter what kind of film he's doing, he will kind of inject a bit of horror here or a bit of unexpected comedy there, and it really just kind of breaks it up and kind of almost catch you off guard. But he's just so good at picking just the right moments and just the right extent of that. I think of Spider-Man 2, probably my favourite Raimi film. And you think of the birth of Doc Ock sequence, in the operating theatre, which is like a really kind of brutal, visceral kind of scene of horror. But obviously, because it's not got actually any visible blood, you get away with it in a 12A film. And you have your surgeons being thrown around the room, one being dragged across the floor, leaving nail marks in it, all the screaming and the dying and everything like that. But then you just have you just see a shot of just a hand shooting above the operating table, holding it like a saw, just like in triumph. It's like something straight out of Evil Dead, but it's like this moment of like bizarre humor there. It's like, oh, okay, we're doing a comedy bit in this.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously by the time he gets to sort of has established himself, when you get to sort of his TV stuff, he's doing stuff like Hercules and Xena and stuff like that. When you get into him producing films, most of them are sort of in the horror related area. So yes, he does Time Cop, but then you've got The Grudge, the remake still done by Takashi Shimizu, Boogeyman Grudge 2, 30 Days of Night, Possession, obviously Evil Dead, Murder of a Cat, Poltergeist, Every Crawl. It's just completely, now he is in that world. This is where he operates in. And to be honest, even if he wasn't a massive fan to begin with, it suits him. I'm not saying his other films aren't as good, because he's done sort of the odd sort of the sports drama like For the Love of the Game and stuff like that. But realistically, sort of the genre mashup stuff is where he belongs. The kind of
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you mostly think of the more kind of recognisable genre stuff, don't you? But are there any for you guys any of his films that kind of you think are a bit underrated? I mean, for me, A Simple Plan is really up there. It's just a really solid kind of mystery thriller, basically. Like, it's just I think if you haven't seen that, definitely check that out. It's really surprising.
Haven't seen too many of others films, but The Quick and the Dead is underappreciated.
Yeah.
I can't remember too much about it, but I remember going, this is actually a very well-made film. And sometimes, like, there are films where you go, I can remember nothing about it, but I can remember enjoying it quite a bit. The Quick and the Dead is one of them. Jacob.
I mean, look, this isn't this is not underrated. Sorry, my internet is terrible right now. But Oz the Great and Powerful is just like it's it's not very fun to watch, honestly. I
No.
think we did an episode on it.
Yeah,
Like,
go see our
don't
Wizard
know.
of Oz episode when we did Wizard of Oz Return to Oz and Oz the Great and Powerful. And also we also done Spider-Man 3 at some point as well, haven't we? So go check that episode out again in the archives.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and just jump into The Evil Dead. I don't know which one of you picked it, but talk about that movie.
Sam.
Yeah. So this was obviously Sam Raimi's first feature film. Kind of very much made on a shoestring budget, literally getting all of his mates and collaborators together just to pull multiple shifts in multiple different roles, and just to fill out the crew. I mean, I think the total crew, I think that there were 11 of them, I think, making the whole film, basically. And then obviously the four main cast. And just going out into a cabin in the woods in Tennessee in the middle of winter, having a horrible time of it. No heating to speak of. Just all bunking up there while they're filming. 6 weeks of basically discomfort and misery. And as Kieran says, obviously it's a way to get your first film out there. Something they could conceivably do and do relatively quickly and with few resources available, just for pure moxie essentially. But even from the start of this, so it's the classic cabin in the woods story. I know it wasn't the first one of those, but it's one of the first prominent ones people think of, and I think we talked during the week about just how almost low-key influential it is, really, because it just you think, oh yeah, that's a classic kind of horror trope, kind of horror kind of start for your horror plot, but there's so many just from individual shots to how kind of things play out and how the creatures look and what happens to the characters, the misery they're put through. It's very very influential, down the years.
Yeah, I mean, I argued on the group chat during the week that there's an argument to be made that this is one of the most influential and therefore important films ever made, even just down to can you see the Evil Dead poster in a film every time you do take a drink?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it's between Evil Dead and something like The Thing. I think those two. But normally Evil Dead, the amount of money they must have made, just like
Yeah.
every time the Evil Dead poster goes in, it's like we'll give it to you cheap, but the amount of people that do it will make the money back that way. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of these ones where obviously the end product is really good. You know, it's recognised as a classic for a reason, and you know, a kind of touchstone of kind of every kind of horror fan's collection, basically. But it's one of these where like the behind the scenes stories are almost as if that's the final product. I mean, I'd say it's obviously it's shonky, it's low budget, it's put together on a shoestring, but you could tell just from the start kind of what skills these guys had, and just to make the budget go as far as it could and make up for their shortcomings of lacking actual money or proper equipment, just thinking things out well and having a clear idea of what they wanted to achieve. I mean,
Can I jump in very quickly with
yeah.
my favourite thing about the Evil Dead, the entire thing, which is obviously the basement behind the scenes. The cabin that they shot it in didn't have a basement. The most iconic thing about this cabin, the most iconic cabin possibly in cinema now, with the evil, creepy basement, it had no basement.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, they literally arrived at the cabin and had to strip it like down to its bare bones. It was just in such a state, it was covered in piles of cow dung, and dead animals in it, and just everything just had to be stripped back and then kind of redone to actually be not only suitable for shooting a horror film, but to be habitable. Because bear in mind, the cast crew was sleeping there as well. And then after they did their 6 weeks, they had to obviously put together other scenes elsewhere. So yes, they found I think it was the producer. I think it was Rob Tapert's family farm. I think it was the basement was shot there, and they did other scenes in like Sam Raimi's garage. It's just
it's like 6 months later. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but for my money,
well,
even though it's
for this movie, you talk about the small crew. Was it the kind where like the dead actors would then be holding a boom, or did they have like the full crew? Okay.
Yeah, no, it's literally like that. I mean, I'll come to it in a sec, but I was just going to say, despite the shonkiness, despite like the threadbare nature of it, how kind of put together, spit and gum it was. For me, this still is probably the scariest of like Sam Raimi's Evil Dead trilogy. I think the other two, they're more into kind of dark comedies, don't they? And obviously, I mean, that's an outright comedy. But this one, just despite your kind of the not around the resource state of likes, it's something about the sound design and the way it's put together, and it's still quite uncanny and quite unnerving. And just the general premise, like they're not zombies, they're kind of a malevolent force is taking them over. And it's a malevolent force that wants to trick you, wants to kind of take you for a ride, and kind of takes the point where it's like, right, I'm gonna have to kill my loved one, and then it pulls back and it goes, oh no, I'm all right now, you can trust me. It's that kind of trickster kind of nature that kind of makes it really disturbing. I mean, Ash's girlfriend kind of get that kind of when she's possessed, getting that fit of the giggles, just that kind of demonic kind of childlike giggle. That was just delirium at that point. She'd had her prosthetics on for hours. She was very uncomfortable, and she was just getting a bit doomally, and she just started laughing. And Raimi and his cameraman just like, hey, we can use that. Keep doing that. We'll film this.
There is an Apocalypse Now mental breakdown in the hotel room story there somewhere.
Yeah, literally, they were like ripping bits of their skin off, as they took their prosthetics off at the end of the day because they didn't have the right kind of glue for it. And I think one of the actresses, took her eyelashes with her like mask. Yeah.
Because they just had absolutely no money. They had so little money, like there were no health and safety regulations. There wasn't a thing. Like there is a shot where one of them, I can't remember who it is, jumps out of it's inside and jumps out the window, runs away, and Ash chases after her a couple of seconds later, turns, points the shotgun and fires. That's not a blank. What happened?
A live shotgun.
She jumped out the window, and they said, okay, this is what's going to happen. You're going to jump out the window, and then you're going to run out of the way, and Bruce Campbell is just going to fire a live round out into the distance, and you'd better not be in the way. It's just like, what?
Yeah. Literally, it was cheaper to go down to wherever you buy your guns from in the States, corner store, whatever. Go down there, buy a real shotgun and a few shells,
Walmart.
and and shoot it, and just, as Kieran said, just hope people weren't in the way. I mean, actually, they were just. That's why all its shots of him firing from low angle, because they're terrified like some of the shrapnel would hit the camera lens.
Yeah, and there's a shot
Well,
where
even with the
no, go ahead, Jacob. I think we've got a little bit of delay in the recording, so go ahead,
Oh.
Jacob.
Oh, we definitely do. Even with the like cheap aspect of the prosthetics, they still look so good that there are a couple like conflations in my head between Evil Dead and Darkman that I can't recall which gore shot is this movie from.
Yeah. And considering when they got to Darkman, they then had a budget of 14 million and not like $100,000. That shows. But yeah, one of the best things, again, like the kind of firing the live rounds, there's a shot where kind of the POV of the Force, I think they call it. Star Wars has only come out a few years earlier. There's a bit where it kind of is like moving around and sees one of the characters in the bedroom and goes forward and then crashes through the window. And you go, well, how did they do that on such a low budget? Well, it's very simple. They got the camera on a plank of wood and they got a massive spike in front of it and went, we're going to go and break the window, and just ran out the window and smashed through. It's just like...
Yeah, literally, the opening scene of the Force kind of going across the water, to find the car, basically, as it's coming through the woods. So literally, it's Bruce Campbell pushing Sam Raimi in like a little rubber ring, like across this, like little ponds, just like the most low thing possible. So talk about the crew kind of pulling multiple duties and no one being that experienced and just to get the best out of it. From his book, Bruce Campbell described it like this. He said, the ragtag team behind the scenes that we conned into this adventure came from all walks of life. Steve Frankel, by way of carpentry, became our art director. Dave Goodman would earn the dubious title of the filmmaker's burden. His official job was chef. Tim Philo, cameraman. What the hell, we thought. He seemed like a nice guy. And Bob Taper, Mr. Producer. In those days, producer meant doing anything that nobody else was doing or would do.
Yep. It's just...
I mean, it's almost like, I'm amazed, really. Yes, there were injuries. People were knocked about quite a bit. There were quite a few scrapes and cuts and, a few kind of sprained ankles and stuff like that. I'm amazed no one was more seriously injured. As the aforementioned live shotgun, was around. But like the very first day of shooting, Bruce Campbell's brother fell off a cliff. So she just going out to the woods, like finding something like an interesting location to use. It just took a bad turn, and just went over the side, and had to take him to hospital. I mean, that's kind of a sign of kind of the way the shoot's going to go. But literally,
we've done some big films on this podcast, and then there's this side of the filmmaking,
Yeah. But take after take, if you literally been thrown around that cabin, into things, and it was one thing when Bruce Campbell was doing it, because he was used to kind of play acting that, like with the short films he did for Sam Raimi, he was quite good at kind of doing like pratfalls and throwing himself into stuff without hurting himself too much. But these other actors, and these, only just starting out, didn't have the experience. They were just, they were quite badly hurt a few times. So uncomfortable, prosthetics and everything else going through, nowhere warm, to keep warm, in between takes, when they weren't on camera, they were just standing around shivering or just holding things, making themselves useful. I mean, I like some like little kind of fancy stuff like this. Is like so that the fake bloods, which I think is great in this. Some early films, you think, oh, that's very red, it's very like bright poster paint red, but this is proper nasty dark red blood. So the main ingredient for that was Karo syrup and food coloring, basically. And at one, apparently Bruce Campbell, the shirt he was wearing became his character wears became so saturated throughout that he took it off between scenes and left it drying by the fire, But because while it dried, it basically turned absolutely solid, and when it tried to put it back on, it just crumpled around. It just kind of shattered almost like a cartoon.
Like,
Um, yeah, and we mentioned like that the car, the 1973 Oldsmobile Delta. That's Sam Raimi's dad's car. So he bought it. That was the family car from when he was 14, basically, and he just kept it going like all these years. And obviously, he used it as like the main car in this, but it keeps cropping up. But basically, that's they has a car and a couple. They were like no like specialist kind of vehicles, bring their equipment up for anything. It's like just pile all your stuff in the back of several cars, bring up to the woods, and then just pile out again. It's just that kind of rough and ready road.
Done that.
Yeah.
One of my things. I don't know if we've got the thing that is actually said for in what the tape says. But it's sort of Saman Sarob Deris Haka Dandarosa or something like that. And there is a theory, I don't know whether it's been confirmed, that it's just a slightly garbled version of like Sam and Rob are the hitchhikers on the road. Because they pass two hitchhikers on the way up, and that's who it is waving at them. It's like part of the crew, And it's like, we'll throw that in as well.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely something to that. I mean, this became kind of an infamous kind of film. I mean, so you think of like the tree rape scene, which even Sam Raimi has said to to this day that he sort of regrets now. I mean, he was kind of this was obviously came out this was one of the main films of like the video nasty kind of. Scare over in the UK. And he actually he came to the UK, travelled up to appear in court in Leeds, of all places, just down the road from me, to answer his charge of obscenity. And there he basically kind of dismissed most of the accusations, but he just say, the tree rape scene was probably taken a bit far. If I had my time again, I probably wouldn't have done that now.
A bit like Stephen King and the scene in It, going, I had my ideas at the time, probably misjudged.
Yeah. But he basically the judge in that case basically threw it out. They said, this is ridiculous. I've seen the film, and it's clearly just a horror film. Why people get so worked up about it. This is quite infamously after obviously they eventually got it made, and then obviously shopping it around, to get it out there. And infamously, it was picked up at Cannes. Now, this isn't like the high-profile kind of glitzy premiere of all the stars and everything. This is like literally the Cannes shop floor. Literally people flogging their low-budget movies, and just loads of distributors and exhibitors going around and just trying to get material basically to put out in their cinemas.
Yeah. Because people don't understand that Cannes is essentially, there are two sides. There's the film festival, and then there is like the sales part where essentially everybody wheels and deals, gets distribution rights, like meets up with people, networks, and I almost went to Cannes because Hugh was trying to arrange for us all to get to Cannes, and then COVID hit. So I will get there one day. But his entire thing was like, when we were going, I said, okay, we're going to see any films. And he just turned around and went, why would you go see any of the films? Yeah. Like, that's not the reason you go to Cannes. Like, anybody actually working in the industry goes to Cannes for, like, the job part of it. This is where all the deals are done. So it is completely understandable that this is, like, where you would try and sell your film.
Yeah. Yeah, and the guy picks it up. He'd been around. One of the guys picks up. He'd been around for like decades, such in Hollywood, and he just wanted something a bit different to put out there. I mean, I think he might have picked up Night of the Living Dead. When that was first around as well. So he'd obviously seen kind of the impact that kind of a low budget horror film from the unknown can have. If it's it's showing promise. And so audiences will flock to see it. But this has had big impact over the decades. I mean, obviously spawned the franchise, but then so many horror kind of directors have seen it as like key influence on their own work, and almost changed the way this kind of story is told. So obviously you mentioned Stephen King in passing, but yeah, he called it, 'cause he was writing film reviews at the time, and he called it one of the most ferociously original horror films that he'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And Edgar Wright, again, I saw this kind of retrospective documentary on the Blu-ray the other night, and it was made about 20 years ago. So interesting, this was before the Evil Dead reboot film. So, and they were still saying in this one, well, yeah, we thought about remaking it, do a sequel, but we couldn't get everyone together, and we didn't have a good idea, so we're not sure that's ever going to happen. And it cuts like 5 years after that. It's like, oh, it does happen.
Is this the little documentary? Is that Discovering Evil Dead? Just
Yes.
Hilariously enough, I've got a little section here because Kate Egan in her book Trash or Treasure on Censorship and that mentions this documentary as part of the packaging for that DVD, and essentially go, look, by them putting this out there, what they can essentially do is they can ground Evil Dead however they want to. So they kind of essentially go, look, we made the Evil Dead in the UK, and it's like, well, there are loads of other factors, but through this documentary they can change it. So it's interesting that these kinds of films are therefore kind of open for interpretation, reinterpretation, and repositioning, depending on other ancillary texts that come out around it.
Yeah, and it was one of the few films at the time to be, I think, released in kind of underground cinemas and like on tape at the same time. Basically, it's like they got like those two kind of avenues like straight away, basically. But it became, I think, one of the most stolen tapes, in the States. Basically, a lot of people just would go into like video stores, but they just walk out there and it's like contraband, even though it wasn't obviously banned in the States like it was over in the UK. But kind of, I think it got a whole new life, teenagers discovering it, watching it, together, late at night, how each other's houses and stuff like that. I mean, in that documentary I watched, both they interviewed both Edgar Wright and Eli Roth. So I don't think you'd have either of their careers, without Sam Raimi, basically. Edgar Wright talks about how he said most horror films are about people being picked off. Evil Dead is about a man being picked on, and I don't think anyone does that quite like Sam Raimi. It's like he always has a little bit of kind of contempt for his protagonist, really, doesn't he? He just wants to put him through the worst time imaginable, and you can just imagine his like little kind of grinning face as he's dumping like buckets and buckets of horrible stuff on his actors' heads.
Well, I mean, famously, the 2013 Evil Dead broke the record for the most blood used on set. I think that now has been beaten. And you mentioned the person to hold it before that was Peter Jackson in Brain Dead Dead Alive.
Yes, and both of them are literally like geysers of blood, aren't they? I mean, the Evil Dead reboot, it's like a blood storm, isn't it?
Yeah, the blood rain scene, yeah.
I was going to make another point, but I can't remember what it was now. But I mean, what do you guys think of like the original Evil Dead? I mean, how do you think it holds up? All these years later, and compared to the sequels.
I mean, I do think the original Evil Dead. It's interesting rewatching it because I'd forgotten how little comedy was in it. I think when you think of Evil Dead, you now think of Bruce Campbell doing all his quips, and especially once it gets to Army of Darkness. If somebody goes, quote, Evil Dead, it's kind of groovy and Hail to the King, baby, and all that stuff.
This is my boomstick.
Shop smart, shop smart, None of that stuff. I mean, Army of Darkness, I think I've seen it once, maybe twice, but it is one of the most quotable movies ever. Just some of that stuff is just like endlessly quotable. The original Evil Dead is literally kind of, as I said to you, I think what they did is they got all the characters and they went, right, which body parts have they got? How can we cut it off or make it ooze blood or rip it into shreds or something along those lines? It is ridiculously violent as it gets later on, and this is from an era where yes, you do have violence kind of starting to come up, but the nearest you've had is sort of, aside from your kind of Italian sort of like Cannibal Holocaust and stuff like that, from US low budget stuff, it's mainly, I'm thinking something like Friday the 13th, and your slashers, which have them in sporadic moments. You don't really have big, full-on splatter movies as such. And I think this is one of the first ones. Obviously, Cronenberg is on the way. But this, I think, is one of the ones that fully kind of leans into that as one of the major sources of revulsion as well. And I think that is one of the things that makes it influential, is that it just goes all out and goes, sod it, let's just throw more in.
One of the things I'd forgotten, actually, you talk about like the kind of relative lack of comedy in it, but it's how different Bruce Campbell is in this. You think of his star persona now, but he's not like that at all. Ash Williams in the first film is not that character. He's very much, he's almost like a Ripley, isn't he? He's like, if you're going to put a bet on who's going to survive this film, you would not bet on him. He seems like the kind of the slightly kind of nervy, kind of uneasy guy. Obviously, he's a good-looking guy, but he's very much like the sensitive soul, isn't he? Especially compared to Scott, is more of like the alpha, I suppose, like more of like the jock.
And if you compare him to how he eventually becomes in Ash vs. Evil Dead, the series, complete different character. Like, not a single thing that he says in this movie would be uttered by the same character in the later one. Obviously, realistically, it's following on from Evil Dead 2. Because Sam Raimi did eventually go and solve the debate. And the whole point of Evil Dead 2 is they didn't have some of the rights to the first Evil Dead after they'd sold it, but they wanted to do a sequel.
Made by different companies, and originally wanted to use that footage to like catch the audience up, but then they had to basically like a soft remake of the the ending of the first film.
Because the thing is, it's like until he gets hit by the force and goes spinning into the tree, is a remake of the first film. Beyond that is Evil Dead 2. It goes so realistically, and it also Go ahead.
Removing it from the context of the series, like just as a film for me, I'm still pretty bored by like the opening part of it until they really start, playing the tape with the ritual on it, and the characters are just really bland, and you can tell that this is, I guess technically a second film or whatever, but like this is very much a first film from somebody, and there's just nothing to it until like she goes out into the woods and the tree and the Evil Dead makeup and all of the interactions of gore and violence. Like until that really gets going, I go, why am I watching this movie? And then once it really gets going, I love it a lot. But it definitely shows the cracks, and it feels a lot more like a standard, horror film for I don't know, but 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, the first 15 minutes is functional in order to get you to what you're actually here for. And really that's about it. I'll give him this, that all the stuff in there is kind of, it might not kind of flow as nicely, but it is kind of something a minute, something a minute, something a minute, something a minute, by like half a minute in, they're already kind of being taken possession of and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's only like 88 minutes or something, and so doesn't hang around, does it? It's like straight. I think once it gets past that initial slightly awkward setup, I think it's kind of moment after moment. Just it's pretty relentless in its second half. I think it's got one of those indelible kind of horror kind of images from like horror film history, and that's like the shot that Cheryl in the basement, poking her head through, we're gonna get you, we're gonna get.
And
which for me is still terrifying to this day. I think it's a really creepy kind of simple image.
And there are just like random moments, like when he get out of the car when they're trying to get to the bridge again, because obviously the bridge is down, because obviously this is how it works. When you have just like the shots, just the headlights streaming, and there's like moments earlier where there's quite a few of them standing like the cabin, you've got the silhouettes, and even bits of the camera work where it's fluid and fast paced and motion. You're like, there is stuff here, and it shows that Raimi has a very visual eye, a very kind of, he's ready to get going, and he's got the stuff in there. He just doesn't have the tools to pull it off to the way that he wants to. Which is why I think Evil Dead 2 is interesting from that point of view. It's like, right, let me do it how I kind of almost wanted to do it, but couldn't afford to.
Yeah, the talent's definitely showing even from this, but it's just fascinating just to see what can we do with such kind of scant resources, and still put out something that's still very watchable and entertaining, so.
And it is incredibly visceral and did influence an awful lot of people. It's now 45 years old. That's terrifying. And also, if nothing else, gave birth to one of, if not the greatest film poster of all time.
Very true, I think it's rightly considered.
Let's go ahead and.
No, I was just going to say it's rightly considered, iconic and worth its kind of reputation, and understandably a favourite, even if it's not. It's far from polished, far from professional, but it's a lot of fun.
Definitely cult.
Yeah.
Yes. With that, Kieran, talk to us about Darkman.
Darkman. So essentially, Sam Raimi had done a couple of films, including Evil Dead 2 by this point. He hadn't done Evil Dead 3, Army of Darkness. And then what happened is he went to, I want to make a film for The Shadow, which was a character from the 30s that had then gone through loads of ancillary media. And Universal were at that point trying to do their own thing for The Shadow. So they went, no. And so he was like, oh, damn. In which case, and he kind of had the same response as like when Spielberg was told he couldn't do James Bond, and so he created Indiana Jones, and he went, I'll just make my own very thinly veiled like superhero version that looks exactly the same but is not legal, doable by copyright. And so he makes Darkman. And so
how is that not making their own version if they hire him to make it?
So this is a completely different film. So they were doing their own version. They went, Sam Raimi,
I mean, whenever he wanted to do The Shadow, why didn't they just say, oh, we want to make The Shadow, so Sam Raimi, you make The Shadow for us, fine.
I don't know, they don't want Sam Raimi to do it, I don't know. So it was a different project, and maybe they got somebody else on board. I don't know the specifics, but for whatever reason, Sam Raimi was not allowed to make The Shadow. So he went and made his own movie called Darkman. And so it's a superhero. It's got horror elements. It's certainly sort of 30s, 40s Universal Frankenstein.
Yeah. It's basically what if a Universal monster was also a superhero fighting gangsters.
And it's interesting.
Had cool powers.
And had cool powers, obviously, yeah. And it's got Liam Neeson in it. Yeah, this is Liam Neeson pre-Schindler's List. I mean, he'd obviously done some stuff before this, but this is not kind of. He's not the A-lister at this point. He'd done bits and pieces, but it's kind of Schindler's List, which makes him so he's pre sort of global superstar fame. And he is kind of a scientist who's attacked and left for dead by Robert Durant, who's the mobster who will definitely reappear in the second and third film because they've got his name in the title. And he's been working on a sort of like a skin repair kind of like procedure, essentially.
Yeah, it's sort of like 3D printed skin. I mean, it's very kind of ahead of its time almost as an idea,
But they can only get it to last for 99 minutes. And they work out the way to get it to last longer is to keep in the dark, obviously. So when he's kind of left for dead, he can put the graph. He's mostly bandaged up, but he can get this kind of 3D printed skin on him. And because he's kind of left for dead, he then goes, I'm going to become an avenging superhero living in I'm going to become like Punisher sort of thing, and track down the mobster that tried to kill me because of stuff that he's trying to do. And it's interesting. I watched this again and I did appreciate it. The thing that put me off more than anything somehow was Liam Neeson. I'm not a fan of Liam Neeson in this movie, and I don't know if this is because he's now trying to hide his kind of like Northern Irish accent. Yeah, it's just he doesn't work for me, and I don't know if it's just the voice that puts me off. I don't click with Liam Neeson in this movie, and it's like that's an issue when he's your lead.
He does have to do some quite big acting, which he's not usually meant to do. It's quite kind of melodramatic, isn't it? Which sort of fits like the comic book vibe of films like this at this time, because they were a bit more heightened back then. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's one of his best performances, really.
And obviously remembering this is the year after Batman comes out, and it's got Danny Elfman doing the score, who had just come off doing Batman as well.
It's amazing how much of this seems like a trial run for Spider-Man, really, doesn't it? From sharing a lot of the crew, Danny Elfman's involvement, the shots, the titles, it would all come back really like a decade later.
It's too bad Spider-Man doesn't have a scene where a guy pulls out a gun from a prosthetic leg. Because that really sets the tone for the movie for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think without this, Spider-Man would not have happened.
Yeah,
and so there's weird ways in which kind of an alternate universe kind of Marvel doesn't exist because Sam Raimi doesn't do Darkman. Nightman, that's always only Philadelphia. Because
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. Again, the Evil Dead documentary, they had a line about basically Sam Raimi's collaborators, just the memories of him, when they first started out. I mean, he was like 21, 22, I think, when they made Evil Dead. But basically, their abiding memory of him, like, in school and stuff was like, oh, yeah, he was the weird little kid with his Spider-Man comics. We didn't hang around with him, but then realised, he kind of knows quite a bit about making films. Maybe it'd be fun to collaborate on that.
Or he knows people that have access to things that can help him make films, if more than anything, if the Evil Dead attempted to go by. I mean, there's a load of stuff in this. So there's an interview with Liam Neeson back in the day where it's like people have compared this to Phantom of the Opera. And he goes, I don't think it's Phantom of the Opera, although he's like, I can see why people think it. More sort of Hunchback of Notre Dame, that kind of thing. And sort of the 30s and 40s Universal horror, so parts of it are almost deliberate homages to Frankenstein's laboratory and that kind of stuff. I think actually a lot of it is Invisible Man, if nothing else.
Yeah, definitely.
Even though that's kind of not one of the ones that's sort of mentioned.
Yeah.
Sam, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say it's interesting that obviously this starts out as a shadow, kind of, we can't make the shadow, we'll do our own version of the shadow, but it shares quite a bit of things with the shadow. So how the character looks and what his deal is, because the shadow is also a guy who wears a hat and long coat and is a master of disguise and can imitate voices and stuff.
So so I'm grabbing this from Wikipedia, but it's coming from it does have a source, so it comes from Fangoria from 1990, saying that essentially it started off as like a short story about a guy who could change faces, and as he kind of extended it and expanded it, it became about somebody who lost his face and therefore needed to adopt other faces and therefore it is an identity story and finding a new identity and these kinds of things and stuff like that. And it's interesting. I don't think it comes across as much, purely because it's got a heightened melodramatic kind of thing. And so there's quite a bit of subtlety that's kind of lost in anything like this. It's definitely not completely plumbing the depths of human experience and idea and that kind of thing. But when you've got something like this where it's big and dramatic and stuff like that, do you really need it? No. Like, you go in there and go, oh, look, it's got a theme. It's big and hits you like a sledgehammer, and then we can move on,
Yeah. And the action scenes are pretty good for the time. The green screen's awful. I mean,
it's not good.
Green screen back projection is just terrible. I think even for a film of this from this era, I think that there are other films from this era where that looks okay, but no, it just doesn't work at all.
I don't know, the Superman sequels.
Okay. But but they're that they kind of they have too many of these scenes probably filmed during the day. That probably wasn't a good idea. You know what, the bits at night look fine because nighttime hides a lot of sins.
I was going to say, and considering it's dark, man, why they didn't do that is strange
Yeah.
and beyond me. But initially, Liam Neeson wasn't considered, so Bill Paxton was considered as well, which the amount of stuff he was in is interesting. Gary Oldman was.
Guess what? Sam Raimi wanted Bruce Campbell.
I was going to say, we should have done that as viewers. Take 5 seconds, have a guess who Sam Raimi wanted to play the lead. Strange that. Bruce Campbell has obviously.
We should have paid to get
in
him on this episode.
Who? Bruce Campbell. I think he's practically on this episode as he is.
Yes.
You know?
I wonder how much you got to pay for a Bruce Campbell appearance through Cameo.
Maybe if we
What
just
his
hail the
appearances
king,
going for.
baby.
Yeah.
that'll be
I mean, if you listen to the Empire podcast, Chris Hewitt on that, he's a big Sam Raimi fan, and his fan theory is every subsequent Sam Raimi film is a Darkman sequel. Every new lead character is just Darkman in a new face.
I mean, so what? Spider-Man, all the Spider-Man movies are just Darkman.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a theory that all his movies are interconnected, which is why the Oldsmobile appears in pretty much all of them, as much as possible. But yeah, so Gary Oldman was considered, Bill Paxton was considered, then even Frances McDormand's part, Julia Roberts was considered, Demi Moore, Bridget Fonda was considered. Frances McDormand kind of got it, or got kind of put forward by being very well connected, because there were 4 people living in a house at that point, and it was Sam Raimi, Frances McDormand living with the Coen brothers. And it's like, go back a couple of weeks for our episode on Big Lebowski.
Yeah, and they've done years of doing odd jobs for each other. Ethan Coen had been one of Raimi's editors. His student films. And they both shot scenes for each other in their individual movies over the years. So yeah, they're quite close collaborators at that point.
I want to see the Coen brothers and Sam Raimi make a Marvel movie.
Yeah, can't imagine.
Like the Coen brothers do a Marvel movie that's produced by Sam Raimi. I'd take that very much so. It's good. I actually think that Larry Drake as Durant is actually probably the best acting in it, and it's weird because it's overblown and stupid, but he plays a really
I think he's
villain well.
Yeah, I think it's probably the best thing about it, and it kind of you can understand why they focused the sequel on him. When they didn't get Liam Neeson back. He's like the main character in the sequel. But cause he's just a guy. He's just a gangster. But he's got a thing for cutting off fingers, which is just a simple idea, but it's enough, to make him properly sinister and sadistic.
Yeah. And in that, apparently, got nominated for a Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actor, which, considering that Drag Me to Hell later will win the Saturn Award for Best Horror Film, it's establishing him up there and getting him there. Yeah, Darkman is interesting. It's nice and fun. I didn't connect with it as much as other people because I think it's got 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm like, I found it very enjoyable. At the same time, it is a superhero origin movie, but it's 95 minutes. So it's kind of like, is there enough really in here? You go, maybe another 10-15 minutes would have done it, but.
I think once again you can sense Raimi constraining against the budget, can't you? It's like,
yeah.
I think he had ideas for a lot more stuff he could have done with this, or if he'd been able to actually do a film about the character he actually wanted to do the film about. But I suppose he made the best of the lot he was given. And still, again, made something worth seeing.
And once again, you can see sort of the visual flair and stuff that's in there, just the way he moves a camera. Raimi's always been one for eyeball kicks, always been one for visual excess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it too much, but it's got a sort of funhouse of horror kind of feel to it, and we'll throw the camera around if we need to.
I mean the scene where Peyton Westlake loses it over the stuffed elephant, at the carnival.
Yeah, it's so overblown and stupid.
Yeah, got camera into his eyes, explosions go off behind him, and he's pulling all kinds of faces. It's just
ridiculous.
That scene, the opening scene with the gun, and the one where he dresses another bad guy up as a bad guy and also as himself to get killed by the bad guy, and then shows up dressed as the bad guy. Kieran, I'm on such the opposite end of the spectrum of you, where I just love this movie in a Fast and the Furious way, and I wish all superhero origin movies were this fun and ridiculous, because it's it's over the top in any and every aspect. You pull out a guy's prosthetic leg after making the "I dated a girl with a wooden leg. Well, what'd you do? I had to break it off" joke. Just everything about this movie makes me excited, and I enjoy Liam Neeson's melodramatic performance.
Yeah,
it's definitely a Sam Raimi move. That maybe I'm just one of the ones that just for whatever reason didn't catch me at the time I was watching it. It happens. I could watch this in a week's time and go, "This is the greatest movie ever."
I'm probably somewhere in the middle of you two. I think it's very much an early Sam Raimi film where he hasn't quite kind of got to his kind of A game yet, but it's still really a really fun watch. And you got to put aside of logic in a film like this as well. I mean, it's enough issues in the Mission Impossible films, with the masks and how they're used and when they're used, and how people miraculously change height and build and eye colour when they put a mask on. Yeah. But in this one, not only that, but Peyton Westlake, he becomes a really good vocal mimic, despite the fact that he hasn't got any lips anymore.
You can skin graft him back on. Yeah. There's hilarious kind of stories of behind the scenes and filming it and stuff. Liam Neeson was working for several hours a day. He was wearing the prosthetics, but also the next film he was in was The Big Man. So he was preparing to train as a boxer. So he's up at 3 a.m. training for boxing, and then spending several hours in the makeup chair, and then working the whole day on this, and just absolutely killing himself on it. And then you've got so McDormand hadn't got much experience with film, so Raimi and McDormand were struggling on set to get things to work. And then in the post-production, the cutting of it was ridiculous, because initial cuts were seen badly. So Universal goes and gets other people to go and edit it in, and they cut it down to 85 minutes. And then other people come in and behind the studio's back recut the film, add 9 minutes back in. And this is Bob Murawski, who would go on to edit quite a few of Raimi's films later. And this was without the input of Raimi or Universal. And then it was delivered as the final film, and it was too late after Universal and Raimi found out for them to do anything about it. So they just had to release it like that. So it's just essentially somebody else coming in and going, "Sorry guys, I'm going to try and save the film for you." And it's just one of those. Are all Raimi movies like this? And all the Spider-Man have just ridiculous stuff going on behind the scenes? Is this just a thing that happens?
Yeah, but he always delivers, something, as we said, that's at least watchable. It's they're not always the most complete feeling films in the world. When stuff's been interfered with, but it'll always be worth seeing. Always be still very him. His personality, his sense of mischief, and kind of love of just playing with these genre tropes. Always kind of.
And for what it's worth, both Siskel and Ebert gave it 2 thumbs up on At the Movies. So, realistically, what else do you really need to know? If Siskel and Ebert both like it, then it's hard to get them to agree on anything. Let's be fair. And then there are several sequels. There's a Darkman 2 and then a Darkman 3. I've seen Darkman 2. It's average at best and bad at worst. Darkman 3 is apparently
It's
even
bad.
worse.
It's bad.
Darkman 3 is apparently even worse. I will do it. And in interviews I have seen for Send Help, Raimi has said he is working on a full, like, redo Darkman 2. So we will possibly getting a Raimi Darkman 2 because the 2 and 3 that we got had his like input, and I think he was a producer, but he wasn't like hands on.
Do you think Liam Neeson will come back in his 70s?
I don't know how you do it. Maybe like his son then ends up with similar injuries, or like,
also lose his face.
You do it like a Tron Legacy style, where kind of the son like discovers
Use
it,
AI Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, uses it to discover, and then like Liam Neeson comes in out of the shadows 2/3 of the way through the movie. You know, it will be interesting if he manages to do it. Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but it'd be interesting.
All
Also,
right.
as I've just seen, there was
is-
a crossover comic. So Dynamite Entertainment published a series which is Darkman versus Army of Darkness, which has Darkman joining up with Ash Williams, which now is something that I need to read.
Yeah, Ash has appeared in quite a few of the years. He's the cause of the Marvel Zombies kind of mini-series in Marvel Comics. It's him going over to the Marvel dimension that causes the zombie outbreak.
Like
He's going to fight them on with the other heroes.
There was at one point talks to make Freddy vs. Jason 2, and it was Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash, which is something I still want to see. Can we have Kane Hodder and Robert Englund and like Bruce Campbell all for a match? I want that. I want to see that. Jacob.
All right. Well, about let's see, however long 1990 to 2009 was, 20 years, 19 years. I'm not good at math.
Nearly. Yeah.
Yes. But in the future, Sam Raimi made another horror film that was kind of viewed as a return to form with Drag Me to Hell. And it had a $30 million budget, also distributed by Universal. We are talking about a very different level of filmmaking by this point in his career, while maintaining a lot of the ideas that we see in the very first Evil Dead movie.
Yeah. We're going to have fun because we're going to wait for Jake to say something. We've got a lag, so it's going to be fun.
Yes. I'm going to try and give you all space and go for it. But anyway, it was released in 2009, and for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of the actress, Alison Lohman. She looks like people, but she is not an actress that I would have been able to name.
She is so good in this, and she retired not long into the decade, I don't think. She's been retired for about 10 years now, I think, which is a shame. But she's very good.
Last film that she did was Officer Down in 2016.
Yeah.
It was probably the
big name in it
through the Vatican tapes. So.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that movie sucks. The big name in it is Justin Long, and then Octavia Spencer's in the background of one scene. So that's jarring because you expect her to kind of be part of the movie, and she's not.
I didn't realize she was in it, so there we are.
Yeah, there you go. Drag Me to Hell follows Christine, I think her name is. She goes by Chris, and she's dating Justin Long's character. She works at a bank, and she is angling for a promotion with a male boss and a male coworker who's also trying to, worm his way into that promotion. And in order to achieve what she wants, she ultimately makes a bad choice. I think this could be summarized like the Nuremberg trials, the movie, in a sense. It's a little bit of a metaphor for that, I think. And because of what she does, she becomes cursed by a gypsy, and has to spend the movie dealing with and trying to rid herself of the curse. The cursed object, the mechanism, is and after a, you know, kind of fight scene in a car between her and the old lady. A button is removed from her coat and turned into a cursed relic. Because she owns it, she now has a, I forget the name of the demon, Lamia,
Yeah.
whatever,
Lamia,
after her.
Yeah.
Which we
Yeah,
like,
and-
what was the movie that we did for the Bad Movie Club with you, Jacob, that took Elizabeth Bathory completely out of context? This is the same thing with Lamia. Like, Lamia is an actual thing, and they've just gone, we'll just take the name and slap it in
Yeah.
here, and that'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I didn't learn anything about Lamia from this. I don't think it really particularly matters, because what does matter is it's a spooky shadow and bugs and other creepy occurrences that are after her and trying to, as the title suggests, drag her into hell.
Yeah. Often causes projectile body fluids as well. You know, whether that's blood or vomit or embalming fluids or anything like that. I mean, for me, the stuff with Mrs. Ganesh, is it Mrs. Ganesh?
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, Mrs. Ganesh, yeah. I think those scenes are the best. I mean, she is great. The actress who plays her, but just for me, the fight scene in the back of the car is one of the kind of Sam Raimi scenes from like his whole career. It's just so funny and clever and just well put together. You know, to use. I mean, I know they did something similar in like Deadpool and Wolverine, but this is like doing that, but with two ladies and not really having to spend a lot of money. You know, just fighting with false teeth and the momentum of a car.
Yeah.
And then kind of reprising that later on, with the her lying in state, and of course she arrives to apologise, and the old lady's already dead, and the corpse falls on her, and then all the embalming liquid sprays out onto her face, and they're rolling around.
Yeah, you can tell with a lot of the stuff in here that this is the same guy that did Evil Dead. Like,
yeah.
There is a slapstick to the gruesomeness in this.
And generally a lot of these sequences start with "Wouldn't it be funny if," or I've never dumped this, this fake bodily fluid on an actor before.
Let's try that.
Try it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the worst thing for me viscerally is when, if you've seen I Think You Should Leave, the coffin flop sketch, when she goes to Miss Ganish's funeral and she flops over onto her and starts throwing up the green embalming fluid on her face. Just before that, she has a dream sequence where she's vomiting like maggots and bugs into her face. There's a point where she's eating a cake and there's an eyeball in it. She cuts into it. It starts like blood pouring out of the cake. It's a very gross movie.
The dinner table scene was very, very Eraserhead, wasn't it? I think that's definitely his little tip of the hat to David Lynch, I reckon.
I think the other, Evil Dead aspect is the very natural sort of state of the magic, where instead of it being, a demon that comes in like an ethereal or sort of what we might stereotype as a demonic form, it's like a goat person, which is more traditionally devilish. It has the bugs. It just feels like very grounded in naturalism and natural mysticism rather than Western ideas of like supernatural horror. And it makes it more interesting for me when I compare this to like the usual haunted house type of movie. It obviously, this is different because it's a curse and not a ghost, but I think a lot of the the imagery is more interesting than what we were getting in 2009 for these kinds of films.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I mean, there's a couple of weird things. One, no Bruce Campbell,
Yeah.
which is just terrifying. The Oldsmobile is
Well,
in
at
there,
the
but
very
no Bruce
very
Campbell.
end, he's at like a post-credits scene kind of thing.
There's a post-credit scene?
I think he just says groovy. Yeah, or mid, or
Hail to the
I
King, baby.
googled it. I didn't watch it.
But the Oldsmobile is literally Miss Ganoush's car, isn't it? In the parking
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
I did see one kind of one line review from a critic that says, "Does for handkerchiefs what Jaws did for sharks."
Yeah, and we mentioned in our discussions earlier that there's influence from I think Sam, you said that Raimi explicitly mentioned Casting the Rune / Night of the Demon.
Yeah.
For more discussion, not specifically on those, but for MR James, go to our Ghost Story for Christmas episode. Isn't it great that we've done all these things and we can just call back earlier episodes? It's just like we're building up the body of work now. It's like, can we put a hyperlink in somewhere? Go check this out. We'll get Jacob onto can we embed kind of little pop-ups onto the YouTube version at some point on that. But then obviously going into Ring as well, which had been all the rage the last 10 years. There's definitely that on the mind as well. There's definitely kicking around in the air.
I think Christine is a really interesting character where I actually forgot that her boss tells her, tough choice, your call, when it comes to deciding what to do with the loan extension. And she sees the assistant manager's office, that she goes out and denies it. Because throughout the film, because of how I feel positioned towards generally institutions or systems like banks, they are generally unfair. People are just following rules. You don't want to be rude to like a customer service worker for something they can't help. But no, she makes that choice, and throughout the film she says, my manager chose it, or it wasn't my fault. My hands were tied. I had to do this or that, and I was convinced by it. She talks about it's in the context of she can't sacrifice an animal to stop the demon because she's a vegetarian and volunteers at the puppy shelter. But it's those things, her outfits that are very brightly colored. There's a lot of aspects to her as a character that would kind of signal that she's unimpeachable and she's a good person and doesn't deserve this extreme disproportionate reaction. But I mean, she kind of does. It's not just the system. It is her active decision that causes this, and ultimately it is a punishment that, I mean, I don't know if it is completely proportionate, but as a horror film viewer, I go, oh, okay, no, this makes sense.
One of the things I'll also mention is obviously I know that we cannot assume that characters understand that they are in a film and that kind of stuff. But we are living in a post-Scream world at this point for 10 years, and she should know if there's one thing you don't do, it's mess with a gypsy. Like, it's just like verboten. Like, what do you assume is going to happen here? You mess with the gypsy, a curse comes on you, and you end up like going down for it. This is how it works now.
Yeah, and you have these tropes, don't you? So you have in the opening scene, like, this has happened to someone else, which is like the first time an earlier time when the demon appeared and
A little
took
Mexican
someone.
boy.
Yeah. So of course you have the two experts in this. You have people who can tell you about the law and the fact that do a good exposition dump. And tell characters what they, checklist of what they need to do to survive.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw your star. I saw your star rating of this on Letterboxd earlier, Kieran. So I'm guessing you're not as much of a fan of this one as a lot of people are.
No, I'm not. And I think the reason for that, I don't know what it was. I think it's like a lot of the scare sequence, again, as a horror person, a lot of the scare sequences are essentially just kind of like re-bringing out the gypsy woman in some way. And like after the first time, it starts to feel almost uninventive. I don't know. There's something about those sequences, just like I didn't feel like it was trying anything, and it just thought, oh, evil old woman will be scary. There's certain things I like, and then certain I don't. I mean, Justin Long is one of the reasons I like
Yeah.
because it's like, hey, here comes, he's back. Justin Long is always good and everything, but there's just something. It just felt kind of dressed up, but I mean, I for some reason hadn't got around to this one. It's just one of the ones that just kept slipping through the cracks into the portal to hell. And over like the like 15, 16 years that I've been into movies, it's one of these ones that's like, oh, Dragon Hell, so good, so good. So maybe there was an overhype as well.
Yeah. I think it's often held up as like one of the better kind of horror films of the 2000s, isn't it? And I mean, for me, it kind of I like it. I think it does just strike that right Raimi balance, between horror and comedy and kind of gross out stuff and kind of really dark stuff as well. I think I find it very easy to watch. I'll happily always put it on and just enjoy it just as much each time. Even if it's not doing the whole lot that's that new, I don't mind that so much. I just think it's a good solid kind of genre film for me.
There's
I
definitely
personally actually went in expecting less. I had kind of the opposite problem with you, Kieran. I thought it was going to be a standard, not Insidious, but Insidious Paranormal Activity area haunting movie. So
yeah.
I mean, when it gets to the bit that I liked it kicking up with is when it got to the seance scene, and we go through the various possessions and stuff, because I'm like, this is Raimi going back to his Evil Dead roots, and it is a very Evil Dead scene, very Evil Dead 2, I would say. Like, you could have shoved it in one of the Evil Dead movies, or as you then go into sort of Ash versus Evil Dead, and it would not be out of place at all, because it's the same humor, like, it's the same voice work, it's the same ridiculousness, and that stuff I'm like, okay, yes, let's do it. I think a lot of the stuff leading up to that is just kind of, it fell flat for me for whatever reason. There wasn't anything that really hooked me in a certain sense. I'm like, okay, we've got a curse, there's going to be curse stuff, okay, go on for it. And we knew that the final twist was coming. We knew it was coming somehow. It was just, this is how it works. So yeah, I mean, it was interesting and it was fun, and I didn't absolutely dislike it, because there's stuff that I did like about it. But it's when people are like, oh, I mean, this won again the Saturn Award in 2010 for the best horror movie in 2009, and I'm sat here going, you know what was actually better than this? The My Bloody Valentine remake. And I don't often praise slasher movie remakes of the 2000s. But if of the two, I'd take that one of that year over this one. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but it just didn't kick it for me.
I think one thing about this that makes it fun too is it is in the post Scream era of horror films, and they do lay out like, oh, you could try this to get rid of it. They have these different ideas for, oh, we'll try this, so we'll go to the Mexican lady who can get rid of it. You can hand it off to somebody else. All of these different ways to rid herself of the curse, and none of them work. It's not possible to do it. And I like that, I don't know, cynicism or the inevitability of like supernatural curses and punishments.
And again, this
Side
is,
of an envelope, I'm free to go.
Yeah.
And again, this is drawing on a very kind of Jamesian thing. Again, obviously, Cat in the Ruins and Night of the Demon being a key touchstone for this kind of passing the thing on. Most James stories end very badly for the protagonist, and in that time, and then post 1960, Andrew Tudor kind of going into a secure paranoid horror theory where kind of you get these bleaker endings. And I'm thinking also something like The Woman in Black, both the book or the adaptations, where kind of it doesn't end nicely. You think you're good and then you get a final kicker ending. And this starts to creep into horror movies more and more at this point. It's now the standard that where everything's good and then we have our final takedown right at the end. And to be honest, this is something that Raimi was, at the forefront of with Evil Dead. The final shot of the first Evil Dead is Ash's done everything, and then the Force comes and hits him. Bang, the end. So that part of it is very much keeping the tradition of something that he helped kind of establish in the modern oeuvre and zeitgeist.
Yeah. I guess I don't have much else on Drag Me to Hell other than I did like the parts where Justin Long was sitting with her at the fortune teller and like laughing and making fun of the fortune telling.
Yeah.
I will say I wish the mum got a comeuppance, a bigger comeuppance. The mother character.
Yeah.
Like, come on, we can kill her off somehow.
Yeah, his parents are like the most horrific aspect of this film, aren't they? That meeting, that meet the parents scene is awful. It's just so skin crawling.
Yeah.
But I mean, this was interesting because this was obviously the last proper Sam Raimi feeling kind of film for a long time. He had a few years in the wilderness after this. Obviously, he was producing stuff. He did have a hand in Ash versus Evil Dead, but apart from that, the next decade,
he directed the first episode or two, I think.
Yeah. But then after that you've just got Odds the Great and Powerful, which just stumble, and then Doctor Strange after that. We've been waiting so long for him to come back home and give us an original horror again.
Yeah, and obviously again he's produced the other 3 Evil Dead movies and all the Grudge stuff, but he hasn't been sort of hands-on stuff. So yeah, Odds Great and Powerful, and then he didn't direct any films for nearly 9 years when Doctor Strange came out, and then he got sent help. So interesting man.
My prediction, I think both of you will like Send Help, but I think Sam will like it more than Kieran.
Because I'm a cynical, grumpy individual who, needs his horror a specific way. I'm not just a film snob, I'm a horror snob.
It's a very fun movie.
Good.
It's the first Sam Raimi horror kind of, because it's not fully horror. I would say it's, I don't know. It's a like jungle survival movie. It's very interesting. I'd say it leans more into comedy than it leans into horror, but it is definitely a fun time. So,
look, I recently survived the new Anaconda movie. As long as it's like got more horror in it than that, when there's something in a jungle, then I'll take it. And I have said before that when Evil Dead Burn comes out, we should probably just do Evil Dead movies as a thing in general, because again, it is one of those franchises which has cemented itself in the public imagination. And the fact they're still making them is certainly interesting to note.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, apologies for the technical issues. Hopefully, if you're listening to the podcast, they are fixed in post. But we'll be back next week with less technical issues and something else to talk about. Until then, guys, where can people find you?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Second Cut Pod Substack, where this week I posted my review of Chloe Zhao's Hamnet. It's a very emotionally fraught and distressing film, but well worth your time if you can put yourself through it. If you want to go back to our film magazine days, go onto that site. A few years ago, I did a top 10 Sam Raimi movie moments. So check out which scenes I thought best stood out in his filmography. Spoiler alert, there is one from each of the films we've discussed here tonight, and a few others.
Woo! Yeah, hopefully you don't find me anywhere. If you do, I'm Cage Judgmental in various places. And I just remembered that I haven't got anything recently up on the Substack now, but I did review Evil Dead Rise when it came out for the film magazine. So if you want to go back through the archives there and track that one down, especially to prepare for Evil Dead Burn when it comes out in half a year's time.
And you can find me at Jacob Film Guy. I don't think I've ever written anything Sam Raimi related, but my stuff on the Second Cut Substack is available, and at the film magazine for another 4 years now and 11 months, or 3 years and 11 months. So get your views in. That is it it for this one. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.